ranking every NXT Women's Champion from worst to best. Number 7. Shayna Baszler. The newest NXT champion on the list falls into the spot on the list by default, really, as Shayna Baszler only picked up the title at NXT TakeOver New Orleans and therefore hasn't had a long enough run to really talk about. Baszler had looked nothing but dominant since her debut in NXT after an impressive run in the Mae Young Classic. With Ember Moon leaving NXT, Baszler is going to lead a new era of female superstars in NXT, and that will be the real test of her title reign if she can make everything she does convincing enough. Hopefully, there'll be a lengthy run with the belt for the former MMA star who brings a true legitimate fight feel to her matches due to the way she works, and perhaps when this list is revisited down the line, she'll rank a little higher. Number 6. Ember Moon. Speaking of newer champions, Ember Moon is the next on the list after her run as NXT Women's Champion didn't quite live up to the potential that she had as a wrestler. Firstly, the way she won the actual championship didn't set her up right to begin with. After failing to defeat Asuka several times for the championship, Ember Moon didn't pick up the belt until the Empress of Tomorrow vacated the title in order to move on to the main roster, which is when Moon stepped in to pick it up. While she pushed Asuka hard in some fantastic matches, the fact she never actually dethroned her didn't make her look strong from the start. Following this, Ember never really had major feuds to get her teeth sunk into until Shayna came along. While she managed to beat Shayna once, that was only by pure luck, with a smart reversal, with the second match seeing her lose the title before moving on to the main roster. There was nothing really wrong with her time as champion, and she certainly deserved the title, but it was also nothing special. Number 5. Paige. As the very first NXT Women's Champion, a lot of the current women who are enjoying the Women's Revolution owe Paige great thanks, because without her influence in NXT, none of that would exist as it does today. After winning an 8-woman tournament, finishing up with an entertaining final against Emma, the anti-diva kicked on to have very entertaining run as champion, which finished when she debuted on the main roster as champion, beating AJ Lee for the Old Divas Championship. The only thing that holds Paige's run back is that NXT wasn't the beast that it is now back during her time as champion, and WWE was only just starting to invest into women's wrestling, which meant that the competition for a championship wasn't quite at the level of the 4 horsewomen. Summer Rae was one of NXT's biggest antagonists during Paige's era, which shows what she had to work off of, and when people think about the women who have held the title, her run is sadly forgotten compared to the later entries on this list, which is why she ranks here. Number 4. Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks' road to the championship was a tough one, as many people felt like she could and should have won the title earlier. However, when she did finally capture the belt, Banks did a tremendous job as champion. In terms of character work, the legit boss is probably the best that the NXT Women's Division has ever seen, and some of her heel work was fantastic. Her feud with Bayley is one of the greatest in NXT history, and one of NXT's strongest periods of women's wrestling happened with her at the top. At that time, Banks' reign was one of the shortest compared to what had come before it, and even the 2 that would follow, which is why a lot of people often forget about it, mainly remembering her incredible character rather than her as a champion, but she still had a great run. Number 3. Bayley. Never has the journey to NXT Women's Championship been more enjoyable to watch than Bayley's. The ultimate babyface, her time in NXT was incredible, and her battles with Sasha Banks to earn the title still ranks up there as the all-time greats for not just women's wrestling, but wrestling in general. However, that wasn't what made her an amazing women's champion. What did is the fact she ushered into a totally new era woman to NXT, and she did it all as a champion, leading the entire brand, a pressure she dealt with comfortably. 3 of the 4 horsewomen who the women's division was built around departed to the main roster, leaving Bayley to work with an unexperienced woman such as Carmella and Eva Marie, the later of which she carried through an entertaining women's championship match. The fact that she was often not seen as the favorite in matches against Nia Jax also helped, as she carried the more dominant wrestler to more excellent matches where she just about escaped with the belt. But the shock of the crowd when Bayley passed out during her NXT TakeOver Dallas defeat to Asuka showed just how much the fans cared about her run as champion. Number 2. Charlotte Flair. In terms of putting women's wrestling on the map, Charlotte Flair's run as NXT Women's Champion really did an incredible job at that. After all, before there was an incredible Asuka undefeated streak, there was a seemingly unbeatable champion in the daughter of Ric Flair. Charlotte held the NXT Women's Champion for an impressive 258 days after defeating Natalya in a tournament for for the vacant belt, and she went on to have some of the NXT's very best women's matches against the likes of Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch. Her title feuds were gripping, and her character developed so well to become a major star. Charlotte was unlike anything fans had seen before in women's wrestling, putting on breathtaking matches, proving she was the very best, something she has continued to do since. Everything she did, you bought into, and just like her father before her, you believe she was the woman in NXT, something that a true champion should be able to do. Number 1. Asuka. Who else could be number 1 really? Asuka's run as NXT Women's Champion would likely still be going on right now if WWE hadn't called her up to the main roster, because it was that good, and it's going to take something seriously impressive to top it, creating the longest undefeated run in WWE history. Asuka's already going down in history books with an incredible 510 days of that run being spent as NXT champion. No matter who she faced, Asuka found a way to win, and seeing her gradually become cockier with each win really developed her character. The fact that Asuka did very little talking and simply let her wrestling tell her stories, and she still became as popular as she did, is a testament to just how good she was in NXT. She carried the belt with pride and looked the part throughout, creating a title run that'll go down in wrestling history. The only real downside to Asuka's title run was that there was only a few times when it really felt like her run as champion was in jeopardy, which is more to do with the fact that the competition for the title wasn't as strong as it had been, which is no fault of her own.